And welcome to the God is a Geek podcast. My name's Adam Cook, and I'm joined here by the one, the only, Chris White. Hello, Chris.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. Well, you know, let's not dwell on it too much, I suppose.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
for the sake of the podcast, you're wonderful.
I mean, I feel like I should probably apologise for the lack of podcast in the last sort of few weeks. That's on me. I'll probably explain later, but at the moment there's no point because I've got scans and things. It's a health thing. I'm fine. I'm here. I'm smiling. You're smiling.
Sure, good to be back.
It is. We're here to talk about some games. It's going to be a pretty low-key podcast, but we were aware of how long it had been, so we thought we'd start off with something light, something not an emotional for us to chill out and talk about, which is why Chris White's here to talk about Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons remake. Go for it, Chris.
Yeah. It's not emotional at all. It's just a nice, chilled out, co-op, friendly story game.
Twin stick shooter.
Twin stick shooter, yeah. Bit of a Metrovania.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's been a long time since I played this, and like, obviously with a lot of games that you play a long time ago, you forget about certain things, more like the nuances in the gameplay, I suppose. And obviously, in that time since we've had Brothers, we had No Way Out, but then we obviously had It Takes Two from Hazelight and Joseph Fares, who is obviously the one who kind of wrote and made Brothers back in the day. And there's a lot of similarities, and playing this now, like, it's a great time to jump into Brothers if you've never played it. It's a very different kind of story, but it's still like anyone that played It Takes Two. It dealt with some not too heavy themes, but this is all about like death. It's all about this. It starts off with your mother's lost her life at sea, and your father's very sick, and you and your brother have to then go off on this adventure to try and track down this water of life. It's called in the media. It doesn't actually mention it in the game because the language is like partly made up, but it's based on Joseph Fares's Lebanese.
Is it?
The dialect? Yeah.
Huh. Didn't know that.
And I only knew that because I'm fairly sure it's not available before you play it, but after there's like a commentary to the original game with Fares doing it. And it's really, really interesting. I've not watched it all, but like I've watched it quite a bit, and it's really good. But yeah, so that's why the dialogue it won't to most players, they're not going to understand it, but you learn that they have to go on this journey to get this water of life. And it takes them off on this kind of this world that's kind of feels very inspired by like in an aesthetical sense, like the Scandinavian folklore, but it feels very much like Frozen 2 in the world it's created. But obviously that didn't exist when this was made originally. But like the Brothers Grimm, like darker kind of fairy tales. You forget how kind of gruesome it is and how dark the story is, because I've completely forgotten there's a certain part in it where you're journeying through these mountains, and there's all these huge soldiers, like these huge giants that have been fighting in this war, and they're like just like arrows in the head, and like one of them you have to use this massive axe to chop off their arm to get past them. Like there's that kind of stuff, and then there's like other bits which I mentioned in the review where there's this guy and you possibly miss him because I think it might be like They like the secret areas, don't they? Like Joseph Fares. There's like a little like hill where you go down, and there's a guy at the bottom with a rope around his neck who's about to try and hang himself. And you you could like save him.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing.
It's just like it's quite dark, and then obviously the story it's about these two brothers who obviously are trying to save the dad, but it's their relationship as well, and it's like the things that siblings do, like especially when there's a younger and an older one, where the older one wants to grow up, wants to be the adult, wants to kind of they don't appreciate youth when they're that age, like
No.
15, 16. And like there's a girl that's in this game and he starts to fall for her and he's kind of ignoring his little brother when he's trying to like get on with the quest, and little things like that. But their relationship's really interesting throughout. But like the puzzles are spot on. Like they're very reminiscent of It Takes Two in the intelligence behind them. Like they're very layered. So yeah, the puzzles, whilst they are like environmental, they're very smart in the way that they incorporate both brothers. And there are moments where one brother might have to do something with the other brother absent or whatnot, but it's like, I guess with It Takes Two, it was fully co-op, wasn't it?
Well, I was going to ask about this because they've added, because I remember actually covering this back in the day, and like it wasn't co-op, but you could technically have held a controller between the two of you and sort of cheated, but it wasn't designed for that. But now it's got co-op, hasn't it?
Yeah. So it's weird because It Takes Two was solely co-op. Like
Yes.
that was its focus. That was
you couldn't play that without co-op, could you?
Yeah, no. And when you try to play co-op, a thing comes up saying this game's intended for a single player audience. Like
does it?
Like you kind of get the most out of it as a single player, which was fine. Like I did try in co-op,
of course, yeah.
With my daughter, and like we really enjoyed it together. And I think having someone else playing through with you, especially with the story as it is it's interesting to see their take on it, especially as you get towards the end. And anyone that can remember will know what I'm talking about.
I can remember the end. But presumably that it is just like you control one and someone controls the other, brother.
You literally saw a controller in half,
right,
and then that side of the controller. They're only be using the right side, literally the stick and the trigger.
Okay.
You are literally using the left trigger and the left stick if you're the older brother.
Oh, wow, okay.
That's it. That's all there is to it.
I suppose what else could they do with it? I mean, that is it, as you say. That is literally
but obviously you're not, because when you are playing as both brothers with both sticks and that, it's weird to get used to. Obviously,
very much.
To move them in the same way and interact in the same way, and it's not complex, but certain like traversal does get a bit kind of finicky when you're trying to climb up rocks and shimmy across. But
conversely, does that work the opposite way for puzzles? Because I remember, again, long time ago, but I remember, as you say, trying to move them both in the one direction at once, you'd almost have to get them on top of each other to be close. But then when it came to the puzzles, because you had both control, like if you were soaring, you could just. Whereas I imagine now in co-op, if you were actually with someone, that would be harder.
The soaring. I won't say I lost my shit with, but I was like, just you go that way and I'll go this way. 3, 2, 1. Oh, I thought you said that way. No, go. So yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it is kind of swapped the frustrations that were inherent in the single player. Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I'm not against it having co-op. Like like you say, it's interesting. It does come up saying, this is better. It's designed for that, and it was, to be fair. But like,
no, I mean it's good both ways. Either you play it. But
I do want to. Like, it's just one of those where I can't imagine, because it was quite a shortish game originally. I want to say 4 or 5 hours, and I don't know that there's much scope that they've made it any bigger. I mean, it obviously looks different and it's modernized, perhaps, but like it's to all intents and purposes, it is brothers. It's
the same game.
Yeah,
I don't think they've added anything new. I think what they have done, obviously, the visuals, and like sometimes you think, how much better was it? Like I can't really remember.
You go back and
the commentary that I'm talking about, that video commentary, you can tell straight away how good it looks, and they've added like a live orchestra as well. Like the music is very good.
I would like to play it. Like I say, it's one of those. I mean, we're going to move on, I'm sure, to another game that I have played a little bit of, and you've played a lot of. It's very much that year. It feels like a lot of our team is like you're either finishing these huge games and touching on some of the other huge games, but no one's kind of playing everything because it is really genuinely so mad. Like this. I think I said it in a previous podcast. If not, I certainly thought it. But Brothers feels like actually the release timing actually makes a lot of sense. Like it's a really normally in a normal year, it's actually a really good, smart time for this kind of game to come out. But this year, it's sandwiched between basically Like a Dragon, Persona, Final Fantasy, and it just feels like there is no good time for a smaller game. But I guess if you want a smaller, shorter experience, and you don't want these big 50+ hours, I guess it is a case of if you hated the original, I doubt there's anything here for you. But if you like the original, because it was a long time ago, it must be a decade. Close to, if not more.
Yeah, it is.
But let's sort of keep it. I was going to say keep it weird or keep it light with moving on to another game that I've been keeping an eye on for a while, and I've played about an hour and a half of. Obviously, you've played a lot more, but it's a game published by Kepler called Pacific Drive, and I'm going to be a bit of a bastard here, right? Because I want you to try and explain as succinctly as you can to anyone listening that has no idea what this game is, what it is. Go.
Pacific Drive is a driving simulation with crafting and survival elements in a science fiction setting.
Okay, you made that a lot easier than I thought it was gonna.
Yeah.
Fair. No, it is. Also, before we move into it, I'm just curious if it's my mad brain or you had this as well. I'm just curious how many times you've nearly called it Pacific Rim, because I repeatedly go Pacific Drive, and I don't know why.
No, I haven't, because I forgot that film existed.
Well, I've not even seen that film. For some reason, that's a cultural memory for me that I'm like. But anyway, Pacific Drive is a really weird and really unique, interesting game, right?
It's very weird, and I would say the first few hours are very. There's a lot to take in.
There's a lot to
how
take in.
The systems work. The button prompts aren't exactly clear when you're holding an item to your car and you want to either fix it.
Yeah, because there's just icons on it, and I'm like, well, look, I don't know what any of these icons. I mean, some of them you're like, well, I'm kind of guess what that means, but some of them are very much. You're like, what? I don't know. I don't know your language yet. So
no, you're right, and you shouldn't have to guess what an icon is. It should be made
a
bit more clearer.
It's very much. And I thought this early on. I say I've only played an hour and a half, but you mentioned that, and I salute that, because it's like aesthetically, it picks an aesthetic and it sticks to it, and that is like through the menus, through the button. There are even the button prompts are like you say, they're like, I'm not 100% sure. You could just tell me, but I'm having to sort of. But at the same time, I'm not. It doesn't make me angry, because I really haven't played anything quite like this that I can. No. Not like. I played elements of this, but not this.
And that's why I think it really kind of stands on its own with its survival elements, because it's when you start trying to explain it in further detail where it gets a bit tricky. But
it's kind of silly in some respects as well.
Yeah, it is.
We'll get into that.
But you are in this area that there have been scientific experiments conducted on by the government.
I got a Half-Life vibe.
Very, very.
I feel like I could almost be Gordon Freeman in this, because I think you're a silent protagonist from what I've played, and there's lots of people talking at you, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It kind of feels like if Half-Life and Twin Peaks kind of merged. Yeah. You would get
which is selling it, by the way. That's selling it to people, I think.
Yeah. But it's just a really satisfying game, and the survival elements and the kind of random encounters you can have during your runs, because obviously what you do is you've got this car, this station wagon. It's beaten up. It's absolutely broken to start with, but you can.
Am I right? It's sort of alive, kind of. It's it has some. I don't know how to describe it. You're connected to it. Some
kind of, yeah.
Is it psychic? Yeah. I'm not. I said I'm not far enough in, but I'm getting that.
But
this vibe
it's
you try not to spoil. I'm guessing here.
I'm just trying not to talk.
Okay,
about
no, that's fine. That's fine.
But
that's just what.
No, don't worry. But it kind of feels like there's a real bond with the car. So even just you with your car, people who have cars do become quite connected to them, because they're a big part of their lives, and you're literally using this car to keep you alive. And you can fix it, add new parts,
From a
upgrades
magic
and
trash
stuff.
container as well. I don't like.
Yes, the
I
boot
wasn't
is
sure
massive.
what the no. I mean, outside your garage, there's like a big American style trash.
Oh yeah,
And at first, again, you talking about like it doesn't explain anything. I think it's like 3 times I've been to that before it's told me this, like the, what does it refer to it? It's like the bountiful trash container or something, something weird. And I'm like, sorry, is this thing giving me things I need? And it is.
Yeah, but then you don't necessarily understand it all because, like I
No.
say, it's like just so much you have to take in. But when you're out in
Yes.
you like, so obviously you plot your route to a certain destination, go to the destination, do what needs to be done, like collect all your upgrades or whatever, or and then go back. So it's basically runs. So it's like even like a rogue like elements to it, I guess. But it's like when you're out in the great unknown of this, like this forest, yeah,
in the Pacific Rim.
It's so like it could be so tense, and like the atmosphere is so eerie. Like when there's nothing around, you can't see anything. There's nothing there. But when you find like a rundown like hut or something, and you go in and you're harvesting all the tools.
I love games like that. I don't know what it is, but I love it when you can go in like a bit like The Last of Us does it. Games like that do, where you can go into this building and just like loot it, and it's just I don't know why that appeals to me.
It's not like there's huge creatures coming to rip you apart, and it's not like it's not gory or anything. It's just that tense atmosphere, and there are like certain things that you meet. Like I mentioned it in the review, like one of the earlier kind of moments where there's those things floating in the.
I was going to ask you about them. Yeah, go on.
And they like you have to like, so if you see them, because they're obviously scanning for any forms of life or anything. If you see what I did was I kind of tried to drive off into the woods really slowly, turn my headlights off, and just kind of wait for it to pass. And then it passes, but then I thought it had gone, so I kind of flicked my engine off, kind of reversed out, carried on driving, and then I just saw this light appear, which obviously sensor. He found me, comes at me, shoots like this suction cup on the car, and like rips me into the air.
So that is
drops
what's happening.
Me.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like my car's absolutely shafted.
Because I had a similar situation, because I was, as you mentioned early on, I wasn't 100% sure on the icons and what they meant. And although I'd fueled up my car fully before I went off, because it was one of my very first sort of expeditions, I wasn't like 100% sure on how long the fuel would last.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the gauge, and it was like, am I low on fuel? I think I'm low on fuel. I'm not sure. I should be able to tell, but I couldn't at that point.
Yeah.
Long story short, I wasn't. But there was a garage, and I was like, oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going that way. And there was a weird glowing flying thing near, but not that near. And I started filling it up. And then all of a sudden my car just decided to like be sucked away from me, and I'm like, well, fuck this, and I jumped in the car, reversed off, and just screamed off into the woods. Like, I don't know what that was about or what was going on, but I was like, no thanks. But I don't know if that would, I don't know, I haven't played again since, so I don't know if that would kill me. Or you mentioned roguelike, does it end your run sort of thing?
You do your run does end, like, at the end of each run you have to make it back to the garage, and you like these things can stop you from doing that. And there's all sorts, like this, like these things that attach to your car, like little leeches, metallic weird things, and then there's like the pylons with the firing like electricity at you. And
can you ever fight back? Like, can you mitigate any of them, or is it more of a case of no, avoid these? This is a stealth sort of element.
It's much better to go in stealth. It's much safer to be cautious, but
Makes
sometimes
sense.
It's not always easy because you ain't got a choice.
The only game I can honestly think it reminds me a bit of, I don't know if you've played it. Have you ever heard of played The Long Dark?
Yes. Yeah, that was
like this very tundra-based sort of survival, but they sort of added story stuff to it later. And while obviously the car stuff and all that is not in it, but that feeling I got from like finding a hut, going in, opening the cabinets, finding materials I needed to progress myself, that reminded me of it a bit. Yeah,
it does have that tone to it, definitely.
Yes, but like the car stuff's, I don't know, weird. Like it's really odd because it does feel like this sort of simulation, and it's a crafting game. But then you kind of have this big, I forget what they call it, cutter. I think it's called a cutter that you can, it expires, but you just basically smash stuff up with this cutter, and it just does it for you. And like you get a carcass of a car and break it all down and stuff like that. And also you have to fix your car up. Like when you first get your car, it hasn't got any panels or a boot. And as much as it's a simulation and a crafting game, like you just go to a crafting table, make a panel, and then you just like bang and you put it on. Or there's like this repair putty that you just basically slap on. So there's like all these weird, because like you also, when you get in your car, every time you have to turn the ignition on, take the car into drive from neutral, and then you get into the habit of like when you maybe sometimes you might think to leave your car running in case you need to get out of dodge quickly, but I would always pull up, lights off because battery, ignition, like as if it's a real car. So you got, on the one hand you got them, and then on the other hand you got, I can just slap magic putty on my car. And I found it initially like some of that's a bit strange. Like I wonder, and maybe there's a reason further into the game why there isn't just because on the D-pad, like I think it was left was for your lights. I think was it up for the windscreen wipers or something like that. There's one's for wipers. I couldn't work out why one of them wasn't like the neutral and your ignition when you're using them so much. And I was like, well, they're going for this sim thing. No, you must do this stuff properly. But then on the same hand, on the other side of it, you can just slap magic putty on your car. So I'm like, well, why is it one? But I'm not. It's a minor complaint. Like it's just you get used to it quite quickly, and it is so fascinating and interesting that it's hard to be pissed off about having to start your car over and over.
It's definitely one of the most original games I've played in a while.
Big time.
And doing something different with the standard genres that it features in. So it's it's certainly worth giving it a blast. Just looking at the trailers and seeing the kind of the visual style to it as well. Like it was captivating the first time I saw it, and then when you learn what the game is, it's intrigued you even further.
And again, it sort of also falls into that, like what I said about Brothers. Of I think this game would be really successful and should be because it's so unique. Yeah. But again, like it's just such a weird timing. I do want to play more of this, just to see how much, because it looks like there's loads of stuff. Like there's a sort of skill tree. Well, skill tree is maybe the wrong word, but in the garage there's like a tree that you can unlock stuff that looks quite significant. Like it, you get to do one of them. But I really like the atmosphere of it. Like I like the rain's coming in and you're like, well, I'm just staying in this garage and working on my car because it's raining. So thanks very much. I like the characters that are like peripheral and it gives me loads of weird vibes of like lots of different things. Like it's a bit like, some of it's like you feel like you're on the island from Lost, the TV show, at night. Some of it feels a bit like, oh Christ, like One Division, like the way, I won't spoil it, but like what that whole, it feels like that, like you're inside that. Yeah. Like I say, the long dark, there's all these weird things that you don't, I've never thought about them playing games before. Like I've never gone, oh, this makes me feel like well, there was a Lost video game, that's a bad example, but you know what I mean. Like there's loads of these weird things that come into my head culturally that I'm like, I've never played anything like this. Now, whether saying that's enough for people to go, let's go buy it, but like I will say, it really does feel unique. Like there's nothing in here that I've seen that's like brand new. Yeah. But at the same time, I really cannot think of a game. Like I said, the best I could do was the Long Dark's exploration. It reminds me of that. But there's so much more than that. That's just like an element of it. Yeah. It's really interesting, man, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely well worth people giving it a go.
Another really interesting game we can move on to is one you reviewed what feels like a lifetime ago.
I'm gonna struggle here, I'll be honest.
Really? That's fine. I've played it recently. But before I got sick, basically, we were due to talk about this on the podcast. You weren't even due to be on that one, so it's perfect. Yeah. It's great that I got sick, is what I'm saying. Granblue Fantasy Relink I wanted to talk about because I've played the Granblue games, the fighting games before. I'm not like into them in a way that I know anything about the lore, but I do. Like this one, I remember Sean went to a preview event where there was the fighting game and a hands-off, I think, with this. And this is more of an action JRPG. Now, I think it almost goes without saying, but I'll say it. It looks unreal. Like the Granblue games tend to look unreal. Like it's so beautiful. This is like a sort of watercolor come to life often, isn't it?
Stunning.
But this is more. Stunning. Oh God, I mean, again, I don't want to keep like going, oh, it's like this and it's like that, but this is a bit Monster Hunter-y.
Yeah, I would say this ain't a type of game that's got massive appeal to the everyday gamer, is it? Like,
I don't
there's a
know.
lot.
I mean,
Well, I would say I'm an everyday gamer, and I've
okay.
very rarely. I've never heard of. I've heard the name Granblue mentioned here and there.
I would wonder if some people even have thought they've heard of it, but that's actually BlazBlue,
Yeah,
which is
that's
nothing to do with Granblue.
no. Like the fighter that I played and reviewed, like that was my first exposure to the video gamey world of Granblue, and like I liked it to a point what it did, but it was like the thing with that was the fighting was great, but the way they did the story was just a bit average. It was all like visual novelty with seldom anime kind of cutscenes, whereas this, obviously, the fighting's a main part of it, but the story's like animated beautifully,
Yeah.
and like it's so much better. It's so much more of an introduction into this world than that is, and like visually, just while we're on that, like I remember the first area that you go to. It's got a beautiful name. It's like the Sun Dappled Woods.
Yeah.
And dappled is such a
Yeah.
beautiful word. And like you're walking through there, and then like there's like a watercolor painting of like the town just beyond the trees that you can see, and like that kind of happens wherever you are in the game. Like there's always like the background of the environment is always stunning, and wherever you are, like it's just designed so well, and it looks so good, and the colors are gorgeous. The menus are beautiful. Like the character designs are really well detailed, and you know there's a hell of a lot going on visually, but then you get into actually playing it, it's like beautiful. It's one of those games, like one of those ARPGs that, like, I'm trying to think, what was that game that I loved? Scarlet Nexus.
Yes.
It really kind of surprises you with it, and like
Yeah.
it's not doing loads of new things, but it's
No.
the way it implements those things in a
It's a
team.
bit Tales
like
of Arise as well. It's a bit,
yeah,
I think,
big time,
but yeah, and like I said,
in like that party-based setting, like the different abilities you get and the way you can kind of chain them together with the party, it's just a lot of fun to play.
my only like my only negative with it is like I went to play co-op with it with Chris Hyde, and like the co-op is only for not, you can't do story missions. Like, it's only the
Monster
quest.
Hunter-y kind of
It's
bit.
really Monster Hunter-y in that respect. Yeah, like you go to a quest board, select the quest, and you go off and do it, and it's like kill 100 of these or defend this for 2 minutes, and it's absolutely fun. I quite like the multiplayer of it. It's a nice way. Like if you finish the story, it's a really good way to grind and get your characters up. And I heard it mentioned like some people consider each of the characters like a weapon in Monster Hunter, because of the way they change things. Like one is almost like you've equipped the great axe or whatever, and one is like because also like this game's got characters with guns, although it's a melee action adventure sort of thing. Like the gun characters are super interesting. Like I found both of them. I don't know if there's any more because I haven't finished it, but the two that you start with are both, like, given that they're both weapon guns guys, they're both quite interesting in how that they work. And you know, I noticed that you can unlock healing abilities for the guns, similar again like in Monster Hunter, where you can have a bow and arrow class that fires healing arrows and stuff. The combat itself, I would actually, and this is because I've been playing a lot of it, and we won't talk about it this week, but Final Fantasy Rebirth, the combat's actually quite similar. Certainly the way that Rebirth has added like synergies and abilities, which again we'll talk about another time. So there's more than just abilities on the left sort of side of your controller. You can do stuff that mixes things up with your teammates. It's quite similar. The only thing I had with it, like the big issue I had with it, is that when I first played it, I was like, this is too slow. This is too slow. This is weirdly too slow. And all I had to do was turn the camera speed up, and it was like, bang, light switch. Fine, love it now. Like the first impressions were like, oh, this looks great. This is so me. Everything about this is why is this so slow? But the second I changed the camera speed so it was quicker, I was like, no, I'm fine. Now that is a really unusual thing for me, because I'm not one of these who tends to boot a game up and be like, oh, the FOV's off, the camera speed's off, oh, I need to do this. All I ever do is boot a game up, start it on normal after making sure the camera's inverted up and down, because I'm that weird one. But like having to change the camera speed is a very rare thing. Now I'm not angry, you know, it's fine, because I'm glad I did it. I know someone else who's done it, and they did it like in the demo of the game, and we're like, that's the first thing I'm doing when I boot it up. It's just an odd one.
I did it.
Yeah, it's just
100%.
really odd, isn't it? It's just too slow.
It's worrying because you're like thinking, well, there was a game that came out 2 years ago. It's the only one I've done it like before, and it was like that one set in Tokyo with all supernatural.
Ghostwire. Well, the first
Tokyo. Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, the Bethesda one.
That really bothered me. I know it didn't a lot of people, but that was like when you're having to do that straight away, it kind of puts the warning signs.
Well, it's really odd, isn't it? It makes you think, why is this?
Yeah.
This isn't, because games get play tested to within an inch of their life. I'm sure. Like, why was nobody mentioned this, or is it a case of everyone mentioned it, but there's a developer or a boss that's like, no, I'm right. You never know.
Yeah.
But this definitely needs that.
Yeah, I mean, that which is easily changeable.
Oh, it's seconds. Go in the menu, speed the camera up.
Yeah.
It's just whack it up. Not an issue.
No.
But like the actual combat, again, another thing I was recommended, and I did this, but I actually went back, is that a lot of people have said like, don't play for very long as Gran, like switch to the other characters, and I think that's sage advice if you're not feeling the combat. But like I quite liked his dodge and stuff, but I also like the basically the female version of him, who I've forgotten the name of. And there's no chance you're going to remember because it was like 2 years ago now. But like all the characters, the thing I really do like about this game is that all of the characters feel different. And while you're basically doing the same thing, there are 4 face buttons, and they correspond to a magic spell, or you can have one who's literally doing magic, one who's like Gran can do like a Hadouken, or you can jump in and jump out. Like there's all these, everyone's moves are different and they all combo differently, and you're building this overall combo thing, and you can tell the AI to not do it until you do yours, and then you all do it together, and it's this big anime explosion of amazingness that never gets old. But the combat is like, it's so clever, and it feels like it's such a hard thing it must have been to develop, because the second you get used to anything and think, am I a bit bored, just change to one of the like God knows how many other characters. And it just instantly, you're like, yes, I still understand how to play this game, because I'm still using the sticks to move in the camera, and I'm still using the face buttons and the same basic principles of gameplay here. They're all so different, and they synergize so differently. And like, I really think it's a phenomenally well-made video game. Like, it really has surprised me. Like, I'm playing other stuff, but this is always kind of at the back, like, come and finish me. You don't want to leave me until the end of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the multiplayer as well. I do wish it was. I do wish you could play the campaign. And maybe if I'm being stupid, comment section on YouTube if you're watching it there, tell me what I'm doing wrong. But I'm pretty sure, unless there's a certain story section you must get to, it is only the expeditions I want to call. Yeah. But it's such a really, it's a really good game, and another one I think is going to get lost a little bit. I think so. It's not. I don't think it's that long. I don't get the feeling it's that long from playing. Like,
you can kind of make it as long as you want to make it by all like the extra stuff, like going on the monster missions, or the big boss like fights, or going to collect certain items you might need in crafting. Then there's like. You can basically unlock loads of characters through I can't remember what they're called. There might be character cards or something like that.
So I think that's exactly it, actually.
Oh my god, like some of them are amazing.
Yeah, they're
it's like you can really kind of customize your party within an inch of its life through its characters, and then their skill sets, and like all the buffs on each of their weapons or their characters. There's a hell of a lot. It even
does this thing of like, you level up your weapon to level 10, and I'm like, oh, that's a bit. Okay, and then like you just carry on with the story, and like, okay, and then you get a thing that like lets you break the level to level 30, and then you're like, oh, and then I can clearly see like you can break it again and keep going, and it's like, oh, okay, so they really have made this a game you can grind at if you want to, but also you don't have to. You could completely ignore some characters, I think, like, but they've also got these really, like, in part of the expeditions, you've got these cool little. They're text-based stories for each of the characters, and then every few of them you unlock through the story. You get an actual mission, and often they reuse the environment from a mission you've done as the story, but it's still cool because it gets you to play as that character. You have to play as that character, and normally you don't, and it's like a nice way, totally avoidable, worth doing because you get lots of cool stuff for it, but totally avoidable if you want. but by doing them, you get to experience like the gun characters, like for example early on, and I'm like, oh, they're actually quite cool. I'm not sure I'm going to stick as them for the whole time, but I certainly, when I played it with Chris, like he was playing as Gran, so I'm like, do you know what? I am going to experiment here, and I'm going to play as one of the gun characters or a mage, and it's like I had just as much fun. It feels really accessible because ultimately, like I say, you're still doing the same thing with your hands, combination wise. They're just different things on screen, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of really cool, one more game this week. It's a bit of a shorter podcast because, like I say, I haven't explained an awful lot, but it's a shorter podcast this week. We won't be doing listener correspondence. We've got a little bit of a backlog, but I did want to touch on a game, another one since you're here. I've played a tiny bit of, and mostly because all I keep seeing on Reddit and stuff is problems with servers. So I've thought I'll wait now. I played a bit and I'll wait, but Helldivers 2 seems really, really fucking cool.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Honestly, one of my biggest surprises, I think, in a long time, just because I wasn't like looking forward to it. I remember the first one. I know it's like a completely different like viewpoint and style or whatever, but it never. This one just, and then I don't like when trailers try to be funny and it doesn't drop. And I know that's really petty or stupid when there's a whole game behind a trailer, but you want to be excited by something, and it didn't. And then we got it for review, and then I started to see more on the actual gameplay and stuff, and then actually playing with other people, because it's you can play on your own, but it's very difficult, and you can change the difficulty, but it's still a bit of a challenge, and you don't want to play it on your own because it's filled with moments that are like cinematic. Like you're creating your own blockbusters in every mission. So when you're like going into battle with your friends and you are, either going to hunt down some nests with these like alien eggs you have to destroy, or maybe you have to go to take down these bosses or whatever the mission is.
I seem to get robots a lot.
There are robots as well. It depends.
I landed and they just were like, I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, and they just fucking leathered me. These robots, I'm like, there's fucking Terminators coming from every direction. Why have I landed here? It was literally like that. They were just okay. I'll kill you. Oh shit! Now it was. I was like, I thought this was Starship Troopers the game. Why am I shooting Terminators?
Yeah, the kind of like the robots are like on the other side of the map, and that like so. Oh. The galaxy map is kind of split off into different tiers of the map. And along the first tier, you've got different planets. And everybody in the world who is playing this game collectively works towards securing each planet and kind of getting rid of all the threats. So every time you log in and you see a planet, it's got a percentage on it. And then it's got like how many people are playing, how many bugs have been killed or whatever. And once that planet's been liberated, you then go to the next one, and when all the ones in that tier have been liberated, you move on to the next one,
Right.
So when you land on a planet on your own or with your friends or with whoever, you completing that mission adds to the success on that planet in the grand scheme of things throughout all the players in the world. But it's the missions themselves which like they're very generic in terms of what you have to do, and you will repeat them, but it's the kind of that excitement of, or the thrill of like when you just wandering around and all of a sudden you see a couple of like these bugs turn up, and then behind them there's like about 30, 50 of them just all charging to you, and you're like communicating however you want to take them out. And then you've got certain like honestly incredible like backup from your ship, which I can't remember what they're called right now, but they're basically you hold it in L1 and you input like a code on the D-pad, and it'll call like certain airstrikes. Like there's like an orbital strike. There's something which I adored was like this fucking napalm strike, which just leathers the battlefield in like explosions and bright lights, and it's just so chaotic, but so like there's a lot of like
the stratagems.
Stratagems, that's it. Yeah,
it's a made-up word, I think. So to be fair,
yeah, yeah. But like the cohesion within your team when you're like pulling off these epic like scale like fights against these what are they called? The creature. I can't remember what the creatures are called. Terminids.
Of course.
That's what they're called. There we go. It's just amazing, and like it's got that division thing where you've obviously you'll finish your mission, and then you have to reach the extraction point and hold the extraction point for like I think it's 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes until it arrives, and then whilst you're trying to like survive, you've got these waves that attack you in the last minute, and then the ship will land. And you've got to try and get in the back of the ship whilst trying to make sure you don't die in the process. There's just a lot going on. I like these stratagems you've got, like you can revive people.
Well, which you should do, by the way, especially if you dropped a stratagem reload on their head.
Oh my god,
that reminds me of Deep Rock Galactic a bit, where you can call in a supply drop, but if you don't get out of the way of it, someone will get squished.
Yeah, and the amount of times
I will get squished. Sorry, just to be clear.
That happens all the time. Like with some of the like the weapon drops, so you can call like obviously you can unlock more like strikes from above. You can unlock more weapons to be dropped. There's a load of different upgrades, which is a whole other level of the game. But you've just got so much choice. But like the guns and the smaller items or the resupply caches, they'll hit you straight away. But then it's like the orbital strikes. If you get in the way of them, then you're absolutely, Well,
especially to be fair, it's a game where it happens once and you learn your lesson. Like if the game tells you someone's some random, because you can play with randoms and I have, and I've played with randoms who seem to know what they're doing a lot better than I had. And like so when it says someone's called in some form of orbital strike, I probably should have just got out of dodge. In fairness, like it was obviously what we were doing. We were attacking some sort of little base, and they were calling a strike to blow it up. It's on me, but you do learn your lesson that way. Like, you learn that basically if someone's calling in a strike, just get out of it. Get out of the.
But like playing with people you're comfortable with, like it's fine playing with strangers, but some don't have the mics on.
Yes.
Others will just drop, run off, go to complete the mission, go to complete the next.
Oh, some people know what they're doing to like.
There's no talk because the maps aren't just like your main objective and that's it. There's like
there seems to be
everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's someone kept running off and finding shit, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, there's like optional objectives, which can range from like loading up this missile with rockets to like setting off like shuttle launches and
because one mission I got a great score, and I'm like, I didn't do anything. But this guy was off every nook and cranny finding everything. Yeah. Things were popping up that he was finding research or something. And I'm like, sure, I'll figure this out eventually. But in the meantime, I mean, the last 2 minutes, admittedly, I was watching from my death cam, but I got a good rank.
But having that good score at the end, like, translates well back on board your own ship.
Of course.
Because, like I say, there's a lot of different stratagems to unlock. You can upgrade your ship itself. There's and that like gear, and I'm going to talk microtransactions quickly, just because I feel like of all the developers that have ever tried to do microtransactions, these have got it absolutely spot on with the cost and the variety and the accessibility to it.
I'm not sure I'd even know they were in there. I mean, I haven't played anywhere near.
The thing is, you've got like, I suppose it's a battle pass, but it's like, and and because we got the certain edition of it, I'm sure it's like there's a standard one that anyone can own. Like, I don't think you have to.
Yeah,
there's one that is like you have to pay for.
Okay.
But the original one, obviously, you'll earn credits by medals, I think they're called, by completing missions, and like you can earn medals in different ways. Like there's global like objectives, and when everyone rallies together to complete that objective in the world, everyone gets the reward of it. So you can like spend all these medals.
Wasn't there another Sony game? I know this isn't technically a Sony. Didn't Returnal do something like that as well?
I don't know.
I want to say it was a Returnal. I know Deep Rock does that, where it's like the thing you described about the planets where you're all.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, does it? I don't know. Sorry,
I think it's an absolutely amazing way to make people play it.
Yeah.
Because you never like. If you like if you're uncomfortable playing with others and you suffer a bit of anxiety about it, you'll still gain some reward from both you playing on your own, but also everyone else helping you and getting these unlocks. And like this battle pass or whatever it's called, you can unlock everything pretty straightforward, and you can spend credits in the in-game store, but the kind of outfits and skins and all that in the actual store are ridiculously cheap in comparison to like Fortnite and that bloody foam stars. Like there's a hell of a lot that you can unlock for a very kind of cheap price, and if you do want to pay for credits, it's like £1.70 for like enough to buy you a really cool,
and it is a budget release game, I think, isn't it? Like,
I think it's
not
35.
full price. Yeah, I want to say,
which is stupid.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
I tell you, go on.
No, I was just going to say, for like the amount people pay for games these days.
Yeah,
this could last. This will last you well over a year, and I'm sure I know the developers have talked about what they want to do. There's potential for Starship Troopers legit content. I think I saw something online about one of the voice actors getting involved, and I don't know, but like
they're not hiding it either. Like the intro video, the live action stuff is Starship Troopers.
It's 100% like homage,
which is fine. You know, there's no
to that.
The only thing I will say this game's bad at, and a real no, that's not fair. The game's not bad at it. If you are as a shooter player, and I am a serial reloader, you're going to have to break that fucking habit real quick, because I was like out of ammo and I'm like, but I've not shot anything. Oh, because I've reloaded. You get like 5 mags or whatever for a certain gun, and you cannot be like I am, where it's like, pew, 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 reload, pew, pew, reload. No. That mag is that mag, and I was not expecting that. And it was only when because there's quite a lot going on when you first play it, like UI-wise, there is quite a lot. It's quite busy. But it was only was like, I'm out of ammo. How can I be? And then I got a reload, and I'm like, oh shit! Like every shot counts, man. Because if you just like blast off a clip into nothingness and then reload, just a clip of 4 or 5 gone. And I'm like, this game might be good for me, because I am a serial reloader. Like in any game, like a Far Cry or something like that, I'm like bang bang reload, bang bang reload, bang bang reload. Like yeah, you have to really kind of pay attention to that clip. You know, you can order like resupplies, but when you're in the middle of a massive like gunfight, you can't be pissing about with a code with No, but it's also like Deep Rock in that when you call that resupply and it's only got, what was it, like, is it 4? I think 4, because it's 4 player. So like you know, there is potential that if you're playing with random people. I mean, in Deep Rock, for example, because of the way you spec your character out, there are people that will need a resupply quicker because they're using like a minigun. And that same is true in this, I think. The two, they're not really similar, but like in terms of some of the mechanics, like I really dig into some of them. I dig them a lot. Like, you know, you might get that resupply and you might need that, and other people will be looking at you going, why on earth have you got a resupply already? But it's just the way of playing, the way you've spec'd yourself out. It's just a terrific game, isn't it? It's just like I mean, apart from, Christ, the way the speed things are moving with this game, and there might be no issues by the time people hear this, but like it has, from what I understand, had server issues, but I don't really know too much about it.
I had quite a few issues trying to connect in the first week.
Okay.
But I had to turn off crossplay.
Okay.
PC,
Makes sense.
Then I was fine. I mean, since I haven't reconnected, so I don't know. But I've literally been playing with just PlayStation players.
Right, and it's been fine.
It's been fine. But I would say if anyone's on the fence, just go on TikTok, go on YouTube Shorts. The videos people are putting up with like epic music in the background and the voice chat playing over it. This is, like, when I say it's cinematic, that's what I mean. Like, you're creating your own movies within this game. It's like ridiculously fun.
It really is. Like even the few I played, like sort of coming in, it really does. Maybe it's because of the enemies. It really did remind me of, when they do like the post-apocalyptic scenes in the future of of Terminator, where it's like there's the robots marching towards you, and you like it really was like, I thought this was about weird sort of insectoids, and now I'm fighting T-1000s, and it's like, oh god, and that was it's a I really want to play like a good session.
That's the real, like when you're having to infiltrate one of their bases, it's like,
that's what I got, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. There's just robots everywhere, and now I'm dead, and now I'm back alive again, and it's a fantastic game. I mean, there's not a game we've really talked about this episode that isn't fantastic in its own way. All really different as well. But that does bring us to the sort of conclusion of this episode. Sorry, it's a bit shorter. We're trying to get back on track. It's really difficult at the moment because there's so many games all the time, and if we don't play them, we can't talk about them. So it's kind of like, availability wise, and like I say, I've been sick, and I'll explain perhaps more later. And if you do want to find out more now, like come to our Discord, patreon.com/godisageek.com. It's not like an advert for it, but patreon.com/godisageek. You can find our Discord and access, and I've sort of explained what's going on there. But we'll see. Chris, thank you for being here.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll hopefully be back to normal soon. We will bring you the content we best we can, but if you do miss us anyway, go to godisageek.com, where you'll find loads of stuff all the time. Reviews of every game on the list we've talked about this week. In fact, reviews of them all by Chris. Now I look at it, all 4 of them reviewed by Chris. Man's a Machine and a Hero.
Just before we wrap up, there's another game that we didn't have time to talk about.
Yeah,
Classified France 1944. 100% go and check that game out as well. Read the review.
Yes,
But that's
review of that by
game.
Shock Horror, Chris White. 9 out of 10, I want to say.
Yeah, very good.
I was not. I mean, it's kind of, I like that genre, but I'm not always into that era. But like reading your review, I was like, oh, I might have to play another
it does it really
video game.
well.
But not until I finish Final Fantasy Rebirth. I'm not allowing myself to play any other games until I finish that. I'm over 55 hours in now, and I'm close, but not that close. Hopefully next time we speak, I'll be able to talk about it saying I've seen credits. But I'm not sure. We'll see. Follow us on all the social medias. Make sure you rate us on the podcasts. If you do want to subscribe just via audio, you can go to Spotify or any podcast app. We're on there. If you don't know, this is a video podcast as well. And I know because at the moment I'm having internet problems and it's causing nightmarish editing issues. So that's fun. So watch that if you don't normally. And you get to see our lovely faces and, all that. Chris over there. And thank you very much for watching or listening. And we will speak to you next time or whenever you choose to listen. Bye-bye for now.